Okay, let's have a look at how to work with SPSS to find measures of central tendency. You'll remember that I gave a kind of a silly example of a teacher who wanted to see if there was a relationship between the hours of homework and scores on the math test. And so this teacher had created a spreadsheet, and gathered the hours of homework. Her students answered that, their achievement scores, and their gender. Then we put it into SPSS. You'll remember that I set up the variables. I told SPSS what kind of measure each variable was, and then I entered the data here. Now this time, we want to know what the spread is like and what the mean is and where the other measures of central tendency are, like the standard deviation for this class. So that is under the Analyze menu. You go to Analyze Descriptive Statistics, and let's look first of all what's in frequencies. Now in frequencies, I can see what the different frequencies are for my variables. So I click on the variable that I want and I bring it over here to the right hand window, math score. Gender, I'm not interested in the frequencies or a standard deviation or something there because I know how many boys and how many girls I have in my class. So I can click now. Once I've got them over here, I can click on statistics and tell SPSS what to give me. I want the mean, the median, the mode, I want the standard deviation and the variance and the range and the minimum and the maximum. We'll talk about some of these others later. So I'm going to say OK. Notice that I am asking it for a frequency table, for frequency tables. So when I click on OK, over in my output file, I get the frequencies. So first of all, for hours of homework, in this column right here, I get the mean, 1.68, mean, that would be the average hours of homework, the median, the mode, oh, that's really encouraging, isn't it? The standard deviation for how far apart those are, my range, my minimum, and my maximum. I get the same thing in a column for the math scores. The mean on this math test was 48, the median, the mode, the standard deviation is fairly large, and the variance, you'll remember that the standard deviation is the square root of the variance, and my minimum and my maximum. Now, one thing I'd like to show you, and this works for the graphs too, if you click on this and right-click on it, and you want to put it into a Word document, for example, you need to choose Copy Special. Please remember that. And you choose it as an image, and when you say OK, what it means is that you can come over to a Word document and you can paste it. And that's how you get things out of SPSS. It doesn't work very well if you just copy them. It works okay on these, but for the graphs it doesn't work. So I always use that Copy Special, just a little hint. Okay, so there back here, I'm sorry. Now in my frequency tables, you've seen these before. This is for hours of homework. So for 0 hours of homework, there were 7 students. 1 hour of homework, there were 4. Notice the percent, and it's giving you the cumulative percent adding up to 100. So you've seen this before. And then it made a frequency chart also for me of the scores on the test. There was 1 student who got 60, there was 1 who got 50, here's my mode, that 53, and it's going the cumulative percent too. So that's where SPS is giving you that if you had to figure some things by hand. Now, let me show you the other way. In Analyze, I go back to my data editor, Descriptive Statistics, and this time I'm going to come down to Descriptives. And here again, I take the variables that I want, and this time in Options, I can choose what I want. Well, I want the variance and the range also, so I'm going to check them all. And when I click on OK, I get a chart that's my descriptives. And this time it's in one chart and you read it across. So for hours of homework, the mean was 1.68, the standard deviation was 1.916, the same as it was right up here. Just two different ways to get the information. So that's how to get the measures of standard deviation, or the measures of central tendency. Now, this teacher wanted to compare girls to boys. You'll remember she collected the gender, she knew the gender for each student. So maybe I want to compare that. SPSS lets you split the data files so that you can compare, and we often compare in statistical analysis. Under the data menu, I'm going to go down to split file, and I'm going to tell, the default is to do not create groups and analyze all the cases, but I want it to organize my output by groups, and I want those groups based on gender, and I'm going to say OK. Now in my output, remember it's recording everything that the computer does. Oh look, I sorted my cases by gender and I split the file by gender. Now let's look at what happens when I analyze. I'm just going to go to the descriptives. And it remembers what you did the last time. All of these are still checked, and that's fine. But this time, in my output file, I get the males, and here's their standard deviation and their mean for hours of homework. Here's the females' standard deviation and mean for hours of homework. Quite a bit different. And here's their math scores. Standard deviation, the mean. The girls' math scores is lower and yet spread out more. So here's how I can start to compare my students by male and female and get this interesting information. And of course, as we go further on in this course, we're going to be looking at, is this difference in the mean, for example, between the math scores, between the boys and the girls, is that statistically, is there really a difference, or is there not a difference statistically? And that's where we're going to be going with this. So now you know how to work with some graphs. You need to play around with those, and you know how to find all those different measures of central tendency.